Hey guys, this is the advanced Unit 12.1 notes. We are talking about the surface area and volume of prisms and cylinders. I already have the learning target written up here so you can see that. Let me make sure this is focused. Okay. Alright, and you notice here that there is this formula. This is the surface area formula. Therefore, we are going to use this anytime we are talking about surface area. So this entire first page, we're using this formula. And then down here, we've got perimeter, height, and the area of the base. So capital B is area of the base. And all of this is shown here. So if you don't know what the P, H, or B is, you can just look up here at this little cheat sheet part, and it will show you. I'm going to take one of my highlighters, because the first thing we need to find is the perimeter of the base shape. Well, first of all, what is the base shape? Well, this right here is called a rectangular prism. So it has six faces on it. And if you notice, like the top and the bottom are the same shape, the two sides are the same shape, and the front and the back are the same size rectangle. With a rectangular prism, you can actually pick which ones you want to be the base, which is kind of crazy. I'm going to choose the top and the bottom, but if you would like, you can choose different ones, like the two sides or the front and the back. But I have chosen top or the bottom. I just like to do the top or bottom for rectangular prisms. And so we need the perimeter of that. So I'm going to highlight the perimeter, like the P, and then also highlight the perimeter of the shape. So if you look here, 10 is the length of the side, 3 is the length of the other side. So it is just going to be all four sides, 10 plus 3 plus 10 plus 3. So 26 will end up being the perimeter. And then our base, capital B stands for area of the base. So I'm actually going to color this in now. And that is highlighted. And you've got to figure out, okay, what shape is this? Well, this is a rectangle. So the area of this rectangle is just simply base times height. So it's a pretty simple one. I just need to figure out what my base and my height of this highlighted shape is. So the base is 10, the height is 3. That's why we highlight the shape, so it's easier to see. So 10 is my base times 3 for my height, and that is going to equal 30. Okay. And these are the two things that have to do with that base shape, your base rectangle. Now I'm going to take my other highlighter, and notice here we've got a capital P, we've got a capital B, and we also have an H, which will stand for the height of our prism. All right, so I'm going to highlight my H in my other color. I have pink. And then the important thing about your height is right here, and I'm going to go ahead and box this because it is important. It is just simply the distance between the two bases. So it is how far apart are those two things that you highlighted. So since you're always going to highlight your bases, how far apart are they? Well, they are 5 units long. I'm actually going to highlight this one as well. So this one's 5. They're all 5, all of these heights. And that just simply goes there. And so now we have everything that we need to plug in to our formula. I'm going to write this: surface area equals BH plus 2B. My P is here. Surface area equals 26 times my height is 5. And then 2 times my area of my base, which is 30. And I want you to think about, like, why does this work? Well, you've got two bases, so you need the area of those, and that's why we're multiplying it by 2. And then the other part is just going to be, since these are rectangles, it's just base times height, but of all of these faces, that's why you need the perimeter, because that's the base of all of the sides put together. And then the height is just how far apart the bases are. So that's why that works the way it does. All right, so we just need to put this in our calculator. All right, so I have my calculator, and I'm just going to simply take 26, multiply it by 5, and add and so you end up getting 190 for that answer. And that is the total surface area of this shape. And we're moving on to cylinders. All right, the next problem here, we have it wants you to find the surface area. We've got this formula. It's slightly different because, like, our perimeter is actually going to be circumference. That's what it is. So the perimeter of this is simply the circumference of this circle here. So I'm going to take my perimeter formula, which is circumference formula, 2 pi r. Actually, I should have used pi times diameter because we're given the diameter. Let's change that. Pi times diameter, which would be 3 pi. I'm going to leave this one in terms of pi. For right now, we are not going to change it to a decimal until the very last step. So 3 pi is going to be my p, which is the circumference. And then we need the area of our base. So now I will just simply fill that in and show, what's it going to show? This as the base. And pi r squared is always going to be the area for the base of a cylinder, because it's always going to be a circle. So that's really convenient. Pi times the radius squared is pi times 1.5 squared. And when I put 1.5 squared into my calculator, I'm going to get 2.25. So I'm just going to leave it as this, 2.25 pi. Notice I did not put pi into my calculator at all yet. We're leaving it as 2.25 pi until the very, very last step. And then we have the base now. And our height is the same as it was before. It is still the distance between the two bases. So how far apart are our circles? They are 5 units apart. And now we have everything we need to plug in. So surface area equals our perimeter, which is 3 pi, times our height, which is 5, plus 2 times, I'll put this in parentheses, 2.25 pi. Oops, that's better, 2.25 pi. All right, so surface area equals, that's 15 pi plus 2 times 2.25. Oh goodness, what did I just do? 2 times 2.25 is 4.5. Then we add those two numbers together. Surface area would be 19.5 pi. So sometimes the questions will ask you to answer it in terms of pi. Other times it will be answered in decimal form. So we want to get all the way to the last, like the end of your problem, the last step, and then you just put that into your calculator, the answer in terms of pi. And so we turn this into 61.3. So another answer, depending on what it asked, would be 61.3. And this is actually the same number. I know, they look crazy because they're very different. But this is the same number. You just put this in the calculator and it turns it into 61.3. Moving on to page 2. Let's do this thing. I've got my formula. Surface area equals perimeter times height plus 2b. And I need to highlight my bases. So perimeter. There are 6 sides to this hexagon. Each of those sides is 12 units long. This 11, don't let that confuse you. That is the how far apart the bases are. So our perimeter is going to be 12 times 6 because it's a hexagon and each side is 12 units long. So just 12 times 6 would be 72. And that is going to be the perimeter of our base. But let's first, you know what? I don't think I explained this very well. Let's rewind for a second. And I want you to look at the shape. This is a prism. And if you notice, there's like rectangles all around here. But there's also kind of a weird looking shape. So it's a hexagon. We've talked about these before. Kind of the rule of thumb is when you look at these shapes, make sure that you find the bases first. So like if you look over here, you'll look, oh, there's rectangles, but there's also trapezoids. So the one that is the trapezoid, the different shape that is not a rectangle, is always going to be the base. If all of the shapes are rectangles, that's when you can choose what you want for your base. But since these are our bases here, and they're kind of funky looking. You can see that these are these regular polygon shapes. All right, we want the area of this regular polygon. So we learned this last unit. We already found the perimeter, which is fabulous. But it's apothem times perimeter divided by 2. You do not have to use trig. Don't get crazy and try to be doing trig like a lot of you guys did on the test. You have the apothem, 10.4. You have the perimeter. We just figured it out. It's 72. You multiply those two, and then you divide by 2. So 10.4 times 72. Cut that in half, and you get 374.4. 374.4, there it is. That is the area of my base. And now that I have these two letters, I have the perimeter and I have the area of the base, I can go through and find my height, which is how far apart are my two bases. There's a hexagon up here, and there's another hexagon 11 inches away. So the height will be 11. All right, let's plug our numbers in. Surface area equals 72 times 11. You see where these are coming from? There we go. There we go. Plus 2 times the area of our base. And that can all go into the calculator. 72 times 11 is 792. .8. And now I will just add them together, which you can put that whole thing in the calculator if you'd like. And that's it. All right, let's move on to the next example. So, bases. This one's a little more interesting. I think the perimeter on this is more difficult. All right, so we need our perimeter, which will be all sorts of numbers. So the top is 3. The two sides are both 3.5. 3.5 plus 3.5 plus 4. So we add those all together and we get 14. Because it's 7 plus 3 is 10 plus 4 is 14. And that is our perimeter. Now we need the area of that base, which that is on your formula chart, and this is the formula for this. We have all of these numbers that we need. Our height, this is confusing. This h is different than this h. So this is just, we are just looking at this 2D trapezoid right here. The height for that trapezoid is 3. Our two bases are 3 and 4. Do you see where that came from? So this is the height. It's perpendicular to the bases, 3 and 4, which go there. Those are the two bases. And then we divide by 2. So 3 plus 4 is 7, times 3 is 21. Cut that in half, and you get 10.5. That is our big B. And then remember the h, so notice this is a different number than this h. That's why we're using our highlighters. How far apart are my two trapezoids? They are 6 units apart. And we have all that we need. So area, surface area equals pH plus 2b. Our P is 14. Our H is 6. It's 2 times 10.5. 14 times 6 plus 2 times 10.5 is 105. Quickly go through this one. We already have that formula. So our perimeter is 2 pi r because that is circumference formula. And 2 times pi times our radius, which is 4. 8 pi is our radius. Our height is just simply how far apart are these bases. They are 8 units apart. And then our base is going to be pi times the radius squared. So since we have our radius already, we plugged it in, it's 4. You can just plug it in again. 16 pi is going to be our big B. So our formula is surface area equals pH plus 2b. Our perimeter, which is the same as our circumference, is 8 pi. Our height, how far apart the bases are, is 8. And then 2 times our big B, which is 16 pi. Surface area equals 64 pi plus 32 pi. I can add those together and get 96 pi. Now, I've answered it in terms of pi. If our question asks for it in terms of pi, that would be your final answer. If it asks in decimal form, then you need to put this into the calculator and get 301.6. And that would be your answer. Whew. All right, that is surface area. That is a lot. I know, it is. Volume is easier. All right, don't fret. So for volume, it's just simply area of our two bases times our height. So since this is just a rectangle, our pink base is just simply going to be base times height because that is the area of the rectangle. So base times height equals 6 times 2. So our big B is going to be 12. Easy. Our height is 3, because that's how far apart our two bases are. And then all you're doing is simply volume equals 12 times 3. So much easier than surface area. So 36. Be that. And then volume is, it's like, what cubic units could fill the inside of the shape. So it's actually going to be units cubed. And then this one's a little different, because if you notice, our capital B is a different shape. So here is our shape. Just make sure you use the correct formula, and your life will be so much easier. So this is a triangular prism, and we want to do base times height divided by 2. Here is something that is important. This 5 is just there to be confusing. Look at your triangle. You want to find the base and the height. You don't need the perimeter, so you don't need that 5. It is just simply find the right angle, multiply 3 times 4 divided by 2. It's just simply the area of that triangle, which is going to be 6. And then the height, how far apart are they? They're 2 units apart. So the area will just simply be 6 times 2. Or sorry, the volume will be 6 times 2, which is 12. So as you can tell, these go a lot faster. And then the area of our base for this shape, if you notice, it is a cylinder again. For cylinders, the base is always a circle. So the area of that base is always going to be pi r squared, which is quite convenient. So it kind of just cuts out perimeter, but you still have to find all the other same stuff, which is nice. The area of our base is pi times 4 squared, so 16 pi. And remember, we won't put that in until the end. And then our height, it's 7 units. The circles are 7 units away from each other. So our volume is 16 pi times 7. 16 times 7 is 112 pi. If it asks in terms of pi, then you would be done. If it asks for it in decimal form, then you would put 112 times pi in the calculator, and you would get 351.9. And those would be your final answers. And this is pretty much the exact same thing. Just make sure that when you're using pi r squared, it gives you the diameter. Make sure to cut that in half. So pi times 5 squared, your big B will be 25 pi. And then height, how far apart are the circles? They're 20 units apart. So 25 pi times 20 equals 500 pi. And then you would just put 500 pi into the calculator to get it in decimal form. Quite a large number, 1,570.8. And that's units cubed as well. All right, thanks for listening.